World ahoy!
The Industrial Revolution.
Focus power.
Great Britain at the start of the 18th century. Across Europe, life had changed very little since the Middle Ages. Fields were being farmed very slowly, by hand, or at best with mules and horses. There were very few cows or sheep. Most people couldn't afford to buy meat. Thread was spun on homemade spinning wheels. And clothes were made on small looms. Iron was worked in homemade forges using charcoal. But charcoal comes from trees, and trees were starting to become scarce. But then someone discovered a different kind of coal. This coal came from the ground. Now iron could be worked much more quickly. At that time, a very clever man called James Watt invented a machine that was going to change everything.
Okay, I do have to pause there for my Minecrafters. There's a connection here. When you first get dropped into your first Minecraft level, you chop down trees to make the coal, right? Because until you make the coal, excuse me, we've gotten to the point of root. When you chop down trees to make the coal, then you can start making the iron pickaxes. Then you can go get the coal out of the ground. So in this video, people were making the coal and burning fuel out of trees until they discovered that there was better fuel in the ground. So you could see, I know it was silly. She got sucked into a spinning web and one got his eyebrows burned off, or more than his eyebrows. But people were using nothing but hand tools, and it was a slow, tedious process at home individually. Okay, so that's why folks had to come up with an idea. Now we're shifting. I know it's silly, but actually learn something. Come on.
He thought that with the help of water, iron, and coal, you could make a wheel move. This is what he achieved, and that was how the steam engine was born. Thanks to Watt, other great inventors made more amazing machines. Jethro Tull turned the machine into a powerful harvester. Another man traded in his plow horses for a more powerful machine. Even spinning changed, thanks to Richard Arkwright. A certain sailor decided that sailing ships were out of fashion. While another man thought that if the steam engine could be used to move ships, it could move him as well. Thankfully, someone else improved his idea. In this way, Richard Trevithick invented the locomotive. With so much iron and all these new machines, a lot more things could be achieved. Machines could even make other machines, which in turn would make yet more machines. But in order to get all these machines going, they needed more people, workers. So people from the countryside went to live in the cities in order to work in the new factories.
And I hope you remember from yesterday, excuse me. I know it's silly, but I hope you remember from yesterday that people start moving to the cities, right? And we even saw the factories. We saw that kids were even working in some of those factories, and that does cause problems. It causes pollution and overcrowding and disease. Sit up, be a part of it. Enough.
Now there was food, clothes, hospitals, and work for everyone. The dream of a few men brought about perhaps the most important revolution in the history of man, the Industrial Revolution.
All right, and that's what we're learning about this week. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. All right, yesterday, let's recap. We talked about Eli Whitney, and we talked about the cotton gin. At the very end of yesterday, we saw and heard about how that increased the slave population, which is not a good thing in our history, but we should learn all about our history, the good, the bad, the ugly. Why do we talk about bad things in history? Just to make us feel bad? No, because we need to learn so that we make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else in our time, that we stand up for people and that we fight to make sure that the Bill of Rights, that freedom is upheld. Okay. We also talked about Samuel Slater, the father of the Industrial Revolution, because he came up with that system of making those factories, mostly for clothes, which meant there was more need for cotton, which meant there were more slaves. Remember, it quadrupled. It was 4 times more slavery happening because of this Industrial Revolution. So, yay, technology, boo, some of the consequences. And then, of course, I hope you remember Mr. Robert Fulton with the steamboat. We read about him earlier this year, but that steamboat helped everything move. Okay. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, remember, all of this is happening behind some of the other things that we learned about this year. I don't know why this is here. Why I can't get rid of it? There we go. Ah, lovely. Okay. So early 1800s, in 1803, we have the Louisiana Purchase. Cedric, stop. We have the Louisiana Purchase. And if you remember, got the Louisiana Purchase, we had this land during the Rev War. We got all of this land during the Louisiana Purchase. Well, that was new land that didn't have colonists and settlers on it. So, along with the Industrial Revolution moving people into the cities, because of this, we also see a lot of people moving out west. So that's our next page. More inventions that help people move out west. And when we're talking about the West, we're not talking about all the way out to California here. We're talking about the Great Plains. That middle part of the United States right here, this is flat, grassy area. It's plains, and they're big. So we call them the Great Plains. It becomes known as the breadbasket of the world, meaning that the majority of grains that make bread were grown right there in the middle part of America. Okay. 3 big inventions that helped were windmills. Windmills was one of them. Windmills allowed farmers to get water from deep underground. So you didn't have to live next to a river if you could find groundwater. As this spun around, it lowered and raised water from the ground. Pretty cool, huh? Have any of you ever seen the kind of pumps, water pumps that you can use and do that same thing? I have one of those at my house. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Okay. Another thing that we've seen in several of the videos is the steel plow. Instead of that guy and his horse having to chop the grass, the grain, the wheat by hand, they can now plow up a field in record time. So the steel plow is strong enough to cut through thick, tangled roots of the soil, which helps you grow things faster. So all of these improvements, these inventions are helping in that wheat growing area, the Great Plains, which was west at the time. So we're growing out west. We're going westward. All righty. And then the mechanical reaper. Maybe some of y'all have heard of the Grim Reaper. Yeah. You know, the guy in the here, I'll draw a picture of him. Okay. You know, he's the guy in the black hood, right? Got a long robe on. All right. And he carries the thing that looks like this. That's a scythe. That's a reaper. You use it. That's actually a thing that you swing across the grass like this. You go in a downward motion. This is a sharp angle. This was before they had lawnmowers. You would swing it and it would cut through the wheat. Well, a mechanical reaper cuts through that wheat without you having to swing anything. It's a machine. Yeah. We saw, they kind of showed a picture of one of those going through and the wheat going up into the back of it, right? So it cut wheat. Wheat, I'm going to put in a box here. It's bold. Because that becomes a money-making crop for the folks that live out west. It's wheat that makes that bread that you like so much. You know, your burger bun and your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Ooh, and those honey rolls you like to eat on Thanksgiving. Yeah, made with wheat. Okay. And the mechanical reaper was 10 times faster than someone using a scythe by hand. So we can make more, produce more. We can till up the ground, plant the seeds, and then reap the harvest. Okay, and all of this is taking place out west in that breadbasket of America. Also, we have these great big fields now. And so beef cattle. Some of you like your hamburger and your steaks. Okay, well, beef is what's for dinner. Beef cattle. So I put that in a box here. Cattle is cow. Cattle is a group of cows. Beef cattle also. Dollar bills, y'all. Dollar bills, y'all. Many people moved west to raise beef cattle because there was money to be had in it. So 3 big things that helped people move west and make money out there were the windmill, the steel plow, and the mechanical reaper. And because of those, we could clear fields and make them safe for raising beef cattle. So they were making money off of selling wheat back to the colonies, shipping it over to Great Britain and France and all the other people, and beef. Because in the middle of America, we have all that land. Do they have all that land in England? No. Do they have all that land in France? No, those countries compared to ours are tiny. So we're able to make a lot more grains and raise a lot more cows because we got the space for them. And we're able to ship that stuff off and make a lot more money. That's why I put these in boxes and put dollar signs around them, because folks are starting to move west. So we had the Louisiana Purchase along with the Industrial Revolution, and America is spreading west. This is a big deal. Hear me now. America getting bigger. We're spreading west because of these two big events, Louisiana Purchase and the Industrial Revolution happening. Okay, guys, I'm gonna throw on the brain pop about the Industrial Revolution, and that will be it for today. Do you have these blanks filled in, my loves? Questions, concerns, issues? We good? All right, let's see if we can watch the brain pop on the Industrial Revolution now. They will let me log in with Clever. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come on, guys. Sit up, be a part of it.
Hey, not so fast. Dear Tim and Moby, what was the Industrial Revolution all about? From Marcia. The period from the mid-1700s to the early 1900s is called the Industrial Revolution because of all the technological advances made. A huge number of inventions during this 150-year period completely changed the way people lived and worked. There were two different revolutionary periods. They're called...
What is that? You recognize any of those? Cotton gin, locomotive, steamboat, airplanes. We're not there yet, but we'll get there eventually. This is a pump. Kind of like that windmill would have pumped stuff up and down. Okay, just showing you some things.
Lived and worked. There were two different revolutionary periods. They're called the First and Second Industrial Revolutions. The first one covers the mid-1700s all the way up to around 1850. It started in England with three major inventions.
One was the steam engine, perfected by Scottish engineer James Watt.
Steam power was used to quickly manufacture things that used to rely on manpower. For example, the second major invention of this time, the powered loom. Oh, a loom is a machine that makes cloth out of thread. The new powered looms made cloth much, much faster than any person could.
The third invention of this period was a new furnace for making steel.
England used its vast resources of coal to power these new machines. All these industries were centered in large towns and cities. People started leaving their farm jobs in the country to come work in the city, in factories. Meanwhile, cotton plantations in the southern United States needed to keep up with the demand for raw materials from British cloth factories.
So the American Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. It picked seeds out of raw cotton much faster than a person could by hand. And in the northern U.S., factories pioneered the assembly line. The assembly line made it easier and faster to build things by making workers responsible for just one part of the process. Check out our assembly line movie to find out more.
So that was the first Industrial Revolution. The second one covered the late 1800s, and it was led by the United States. For one, there are huge advances in transportation and communication with the railroad, telegraph, telephone, and steamship. These advances made it easier to transport goods and information. Without them, the world economy would never have grown the way it did. Another big area of improvement was the harnessing of electricity. This was a cheaper, more flexible power source than the steam engine. It led to the invention of the light bulb, trolleys, subways, the radio, and lots more. The third advance was the use of scientific discoveries in making consumer goods. The automobile would never have been mass-produced without this major shift in industrial thought. Of course, cars would never have been possible without the invention of commercial oil wells. The U.S. drilled lots of oil during the Second Revolution. By the time the 20th century rolled around, the Industrial Revolution had changed Europe and the U.S. from farming societies to industrial societies. Lots of new wealth was created, and a new class of society, the middle class, was born. Of course, burning all that coal and oil, there was quite a bit of pollution.
In addition, social conditions didn't always get better, and in many cases, they got worse. For instance, instead of going to school, children were expected to work more than ever, and for very little pay. And before laws were passed to regulate industry, many of the conditions inside factories could be both dangerous and, well, gross.
Still, it really was an earth-shaking revolution. Almost every aspect of modern life has some connection to the Industrial Revolution. Uh-oh. Faster, faster! Huh.
Well, I'm glad they didn't get run over. But in that you saw, we started transitioning from being more farming and agriculture and making things at home to moving to cities and making things in factories. All right, guys, that is it for, we got it. We even got in science and social studies today. So, all right, guys, we will see you tomorrow. Yes, love.